everyone, this is the first chapter of the strips or thread motion graphics series. In this we are going to create this really cool motion graphics with the extra nodes of the geometry nodes in Blender 4.4. The complete series is available on my Patreon page. In that I have shown how to create this kind of motion graphics for different examples or for different projects. You will get all the project files as well as the presets. So let's get started. Okay, let's first add the host object for our simulation. So let's rename this as the strips animation. Then we're going to add the geometry nodes modifier. Let me delete this. First we're going to generate the lines, okay, that we're going to simulate with the XPBD solver. So let's add the C line node. So we have this curve line, okay. Then we're going to add the line scatter node, okay. So we have these lines. Now let's adjust their scale. So let's make this minus 1.5, this 1.5, and in the line, in the start location, we can make this minus 1.5. This is going to be plus 1.5, okay. And let's increase the number of counts, maybe 50, okay. Okay, then we're going to add the random offset to these lines. So let's add the XYZ combine node, then add the random value node, okay, case random value. So let's make this vector 1 so that we have minus 1 to plus 1 values. So let's decrease this max value, maybe 0.2, 0.155. Yeah, okay, nice. After that, we're going to add the transform geometry node and then combine that with the original one and make this 90. See, we have this kind of grid. Okay, now let's realize this because these are the instances. We need the actual geometry. Okay, and after that, we're going to store the random value per spline so that we will use later in the material. So let's name this as spline random. Add the random node and also change the seed. Okay, so let's group this. So this is our lines. Okay, next we need to resample these lines. Okay, let's add the resample node. Okay, and change this to length, and after that add the set curve radius node. Okay, so let's add the value node and then divide this by 2, and we're going to make this as our radius for this curve. So I'll explain this. Let's call this as the resample length and radius. So if these lines are animated, then you should use the count instead of this length. Okay, now let me explain this. So let's add a UV sphere and then duplicate this and move this to along the x-axis, something like that. Okay, so what we have done is that, so this is the length step. So let's say this is 2 meter and the radius of this point should be 1 meter so that we don't have any gap between these points or these spheres. So this is really important when we want to use this radius for the collisions as well as for the length constraint of these lines. Okay, that is what we have done here. Okay, now let's add the XPBD solver. Now let's connect this to the geometry and this to the output. In this video, I'll cover the settings of this solver node that are relevant for this effect. However, I have explained all the settings in detail in this video, so you can watch that. Okay. So in the simulation, we need only 1 or 2 sub-steps for this effect. In the emission, we want all the lines should be emitted at the first frame. Then in the particle settings, we need to set this size as the radius of these curve points. Okay, in the animate we don't need to change this, and here in the dynamic we're going to play with this force as well as with this drag. Okay, so let's add the turbulence force, and if we run this, see we have this kind of motion. So let me create some space for this. So first thing is that we're going to add 0.1 drag so that we have this slow damped motion for these lines. Okay. Next, we're going to increase the scale of this turbulence, maybe around 0.2 or 3. Yeah, 0.2 is fine. Okay, I think we need to decrease the length step, maybe 0.02. See, we have these sharp corners, so that we don't want. Yeah, now these are really smooth. Nice. Next is we don't want to move the end points of these lines, so we need to pin them. Let's add the end selection node. Okay, and then change this to not. Then use this for the selection. So this is the physics calculation selection. By default, it is true for all the particles, but we don't want to apply the calculation to the endpoints. So that's why we make them false. So now if we run this, see the endpoints are fixed. They are not moving. Okay. Now let's go to the constraint tab and enable this. Then add the curve length constraint. Okay. Now see the endpoints are moving. We also need to pin these endpoints for this constraint. Okay. Now if we rerun this, the endpoints are fixed. Okay, they are not moving. So now they are fixed for the physics calculations as well as they are fixed for the constraint. Okay. So let me increase the strength. Nice, maybe 3 the scale. Okay. Now let's combine a different force to this. So let's add the vector node, and here we're going to add the curve force node. Okay. So here we're going to define the curve. So you can add any logo curve or you can add any text curve. So we're going to add the text or the string curve here. So this is the instance. So let's realize this and type here, let's say maybe K. And here we need to change this to center and also this to middle. And let's also combine this with the output so that we can see the text. Okay. Let's increase this size 1.5. So if we run this, we have something like this because we need to change this to curve. Okay. By default, it is for the object. And let's see. Okay, it is working. We need to change some of these settings. Let's first make the tangent force. The tangent strength is 0 and make this radial strength 0.1 minus 0.1. Okay, nice. And next we're going to add the fall off to this force. This node also comes with the linear fall off for the tangent and the radial strength, but in this case we need a custom fall off. So let's add the vector scale node. Okay, and then we're going to use this distance. This is a distance from the curve to these points. Let me show you this. See, we're going to add the float node to define the shape of the fall off. So let's make this and make this to be around 0.5. And let's make this something like this. Maybe something like this. Basically, when it is really close to the curve, I want this force to be 0. But when it is near to this curve, within this distance 0.5 meter, then this force will be non-zero. Okay, now let's connect this to the scale and let's see. So let me cache this. Okay, see, so this text is extracting these lines or these strips. Now let's store this distance that we will use in the material and name this as mask, and let me add the name attribute node and copy this here, then add the ramp node, color ramp node, and let's visualize this mask. So we have this kind of color variations for this. Okay, I think turbulence is a bit strong. Yeah, now it is fine. And here you can do one more thing. You can add the transform geometry node, and we can slightly move this letter or this text above these lines. So let's make this 0.35. So we have this. Let me connect to this. So we have this. Now let's see. It is built for this text. Okay, let's make this around 0.3, slightly lower. And another animation we can add is that we can basically animate this string or this text. So let's add the switch node. Okay, let's type K and then we will shift that to S. And here we're going to add the KS time fall node. And let's switch that at maybe around maybe at 130. And let's see. So it is built for this letter K, then it switched to S. So we have letter K. After that, it switched that to S. So we have K and then it switched that to S. I think we have to slightly increase this radial strength so that it take less time to reach this letter, and also slightly increase this time maybe around 135, 6. Okay, now I think it is perfect. So we have this, then it switched to S. Yeah, nice. Now we're going to slightly smooth these lines. So let's add the KS smooth node, and we need to enable the keep corners, and here make this 2 iterations. We don't need that many, and also make this weight around 0.25. Okay, nice. After that, we're going to set the normal of this curve, because later we're going to use the line profile for this curve. So that may create problem because it randomly flip as this curve move. So that we don't want. So we need to set the normal for these curves. Okay. After that, we're going to add the bake node. So let me connect to this and let's cache this simulation. Okay, so let's bake this. Now it is baked. Okay. Okay, then let's switch that to S. Really nice. Okay. Next, we're going to smooth this with the fillet node. So let's add that, change this to poly, limit the radius, decrease this radius to maybe 0.05. and maybe increase the count. Now they are really smooth. Okay, after that we're going to add the here duplicate node. So with this we can basically duplicate these lines, maybe 3 or 4, and decrease this radius 0.01. Okay, nice. And after that we're going to add the ks underscore curve to mesh node. Okay, so let's decrease the radius 0.1. Yes, this is fine. So let me disconnect this, and here we're going to randomize this. So let's add the domain, evaluate on domain, change that to spline, and after that add the ks random value node. So make this around 0.75, and this should be around 0.1, maybe 0.85. So we have this. Okay, so these are the strips, and we're going to also add some points to this. So let's add the XPBD instancer node, then add the icosphere. Okay, after that decrease the radius of these icospheres. See, we have this. Then we're going to combine this with the lines. So let me delete this. See, we have these random points in these lines. Okay, now let's add the material to these lines and also for these points. Okay, we have by default material for these points. We need to set up the color for these. Okay, so let's create a material for this. So this is going to be the lines material, and the second one we're going to select that as XPBD material. So that will be for the points. Okay, so let's select the lines and also enable this selection. And I think we can decrease the resolution because these are the strips. So we don't need that high resolution for these strips. Okay, so now let's define the color for this. Let's change this to lines. Here we're going to add the attribute node. First we need the mask. Okay, so let's add the ramp node and delete this and add the emission shader. So let's plug this to the surface. So we want here color maybe bluish type, something like that. Okay, and the outer color going to be bluish but dark, really dark, maybe something like that. Okay, so let's also pull this so that we have a bright color really near to this letter. Okay, maybe something like that. Also make it increase the strength around 2, and then we're going to add the hue saturation node. Okay, and we're going to slightly randomize the hue. Okay, so we're going to use the spline random attribute. See, we have this random spline attribute. We can add ramp node. Okay, so here we can basically play with this values, and after that we can use this for the hue. Okay, and let's see we have different kind of colors. So what we want, the variation from 0.45 to 0.55, basically near to this color. Okay, so we have some purple lines, and then we have blue and some cyan lines. Okay, nice. And let's connect this to the surface, and let's make a group for this. So this is basically our color group, and we're going to use the same color for these points. Okay, so let me disconnect that and add the color and plug that to the base color and also to this emission color, and we're going to make this emission strength around 10. So now let's add a camera to this. And after that we're going to add the focus object. So let's add empty scale this around 0.2 and also rename this as focus. Select that as focus object. And here we need to decrease the f-stop. And I think we also have to remove this HDR image because we want the black background. Yeah, nice. This is it. I hope you learned something from this video. So if you like and want to learn more about this, please check out the complete series on my Patreon page. So where I have shown that how to create this kind of motion graphics for different examples for different projects. So you will get all the project files as well as the presets. So thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Happy noding. Bye.